Hello, everybody. Thank you to everybody who is on the call right now. This is Mega Wellness Summit Live. I'm super duper excited about today's show. We're talking to Dr. Chris Hengesteg again.
Yep.
And he was on last week for Mega Wellness Summit, Body Part. And so he's on today. We're talking about emotional release technique. And so I know how this works, but that's what we're going to bring in the doc for so he can explain it in full. And so what's going to happen is that me and the doc, and we're going to have a little chat first.
Yep.
And then we're going to bring in people for questions. We have people on the line who are waiting eagerly. I hope to come on board and share their experience, because I know that there's so many people who are needing this kind of help. And I can only say that I'm not exactly sure how this works and how it is so effective, but I can just tell you in my own experience that this works. This is the future of medicine. And so I'm glad that we're able to show everybody here right now live on Mega Wellness Summit, because I don't know how many other people are doing this, especially on a live broadcast like this, to
Right.
show the world that this is a new technique and a mechanism for healing. So this is where we are leading the way, people, and showing the world there are definitely alternatives to pharmaceutical drugs and for going into your doctor's office for 10 minutes, telling them your symptoms, and then getting a drug. There are so many other methods. There's so much more out there for your health. And so today, I'd love for you to start always naturally first. This is a great way to start and to get to see what emotions are basically or essentially trapped in there that's causing you pain and disease.
Right.
And so I'm glad that Dr. Chris is with us. Hello, how are you? Thank you so much for being back.
Oh, thanks for having me again. It's an honor. Thank you so much.
Dr. Chris and I and his wife, Christine, we spent Saturday, I could cry over it, at Cal Jam. And it was the most amazing day that I've had in probably maybe ever.
Yeah.
But it was so needed. We got to meet, Ty Bollinger and hug him. And, Ty is the one who actually got me to go to Cal Jam. He gave me a free ticket, which is unbelievable, just unbelievable. And then Dr. Jack Wolfson, who is also on the summit, and Dr. Sherry Tenpenny. It was just an amazing, I got the goosies kind of a day. It was so beautiful, and it got me away from the computer. I've been spending countless hours on the computer, and it's really been, what this time has really shown me? That a computer does not love me.
I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I look at it wrong and it'll shut down.
Yeah. It loves me in certain ways, but, there's nothing better than one-on-one human contact. And, we don't get enough of that these days with our technologies, and we're always on the phone, and we're like, this is an addiction. And it's just, I'm really waking up to the fact that I don't want to miss life anymore.
Yeah.
I want to live and be in life every single day, and my children are what matter, and my family is what matters. And the people on this call matter. Mm-hmm. And I love one-on-one contact with people and hearing people's stories and getting to share life with others. That's part of the human experience.
Absolutely.
I love it. Yeah. So thank you so much. Why don't you go ahead and let us know, what is emotional release technique and how does it work?
Yeah, definitely. Kind of going from the beginning, we had talked real quick about like, how does this all work? How is this becoming something that people are, I think it's just that it's in us to know more about ourselves, like what's going on in our life, what's happening in our life. To kind of, long story short, I can remember as a young kid just actually, I think it was about 8 years old, just kind of going, what is life really about? Like, what's the true meaning of life? I kind of just didn't understand it. It seems so mundane without you just go to work and then you retire and then you pass away. Like, that's it. There's more to it. And especially when there's traumatic experiences in your life that occur. And, one of the biggest ones, is, with my mom passing of cancer, it's that moment I'll never forget that is going to be in me forever is, it was October 12th, 1999 at right around 5 o'clock in the morning, she takes her last breath. And when you're standing there and you're experiencing this, there's a lot of negative to, why my mom, why this, I don't understand, this doesn't make sense, she was such a good person. You start to question life, actually. You kind of go, this, I don't, I'm suffering, she was suffering. And I had a lot of anger and I had a lot of grief inside that, I just kept in. I'm not a guy to really show my emotions. And so I just kind of left it, I kept it all in. And then as time kind of, as a year goes by, a few years go by, like I talked about last week with, starting in about a year later, I really had a lot of health issues that had triggered that I suffered with for 2 years. And that was kind of, again, the talk about the candida and all that stuff. But realizing, I look back and I can see myself and feel myself in the past holding on to all that anger and grief, but I was kind of letting it off or letting it go through other reasons, which, other things that we can get into. I was in college, and, it's easy to kind of have a party or having an alcoholic beverage can easily take that pain away. That's kind of what, the glass of wine at the end of the day, oh, my emotions feel a lot better. Or exercise. I was, really into exercising, but I found out more that I was kind of addicted because it was more, that's what helped me feel better. It actually would just kind of, if I felt that grief or that anger of the passing of my mom, I'd want to suppress it through other ways. So then I really was lost. I was lost. I didn't understand. I didn't know why this would happen. And, then it turned into, well, why am I experiencing all this illness and sickness and things like that? And then again, being exposed to like, hey, your emotions can contribute to allergies. And I thought it was crazy. When I heard that for the first time, I was like, that's crazy. That doesn't make any sense to me. But I was at a place where I was so ill, I was willing to try everything. And so, learning and experiencing an emotional release was one of the big pivotal moments that, jumped me up to here. And just going, oh my gosh, the first emotional release I did, I cried hardcore for about 15 minutes, and it was able to figure out that I was holding in all this grief of the passing of my mom. And like, that just was destroying me. The emotion was destroying my body along with the other things that were with it. And that moment, I knew that our emotions actually can be the most powerful thing in our body to either heal, or it can start to cause disease or destroy our body tissues. So I lived it, I could talk a couple hours just on that experience, but long story short, I experienced something so traumatic to me, and then kept it, and then I didn't know how to handle the emotions behind it. And that really was, destroying my health.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah. And I mean, I can relate to that on a very smaller level
Yeah.
scale than that. I've never lost a parent, and that grief has got to be so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So overwhelming. My father has, as you know, my father has cancer. And so dealing with this in my family has been enough grief as it is so far, and just watching that process happen is definitely a heartbreaking one. So, my condolences, my heart goes out to anybody who else is experiencing watching a family member slowly slip away from them.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to hold hope for my father. And it's hard. It is hard. And but I know that today is a new day, and I wish that my father. I'm actually going to tell my father. This is what I've decided as well. Sorry, I just had two different thoughts there.
Yeah.
So one thought is that you are going to be our family doctor because you're in Poway.
Yeah.
So I told Tatum today, who is my daughter, and I said, Dr. Chris is going to be our new doctor.
Yay.
And so she goes, no, because I've put the fear of God in her about doctors.
Yeah.
And I go, no, he's the good doctor.
Yeah, right.
He's a good doctor. And she goes, oh, okay, good. And I really do want my father to go and see you, because the emotions that he is harboring, I'm sure, are just so overwhelming. I mean, he's 76 years old. So, I mean, a lot of people could be like, oh, well, he lived a good life. Like my aunt apparently said, like, what do you want? He lived a good life.
Right.
He's 76 years old. Of course he has cancer. It's time for him to go.
Yeah. Right.
But he could live a long time, and he could live a nice life.
Yeah.
And so, he lost parents at age 7 and 17. So he lost his mother first to breast cancer, and then he lost his father. So grief, talk about grief, is right there. And then having throat cancer, not being able to say, this is when he was diagnosed in 2001, throat cancer. And then he was able to radiate that. Of course, it came back, and is now went to the prostate, which again, both of those are very telling. I don't want to say disease, but what is it? It's not illness or disease, is it? Is cancer illness and disease?
Yeah, it's just, cancer is just an abnormal cell that didn't get taken care of in the body.
Yeah.
It was able to multiply and spread due to factors of, not a strong enough immune system, not, all these other factors that could go into play with it. Absolutely.
So the weakened portion of his body parts, his throat, not being able to speak, and then, the prostate. So somebody like literally cutting you off as a man, demasculizing you, I don't even know if that's a word, but it's really like ripping you off as a man. So somebody who is doing this, he allowed it to happen over and over in his life, and then now it's gone into his bones. So there's so much to know about disease and illness, cancer. All those things are great teaching lessons for all of us. You know, somebody told me once that the greatest thing that could have ever happened to her life is that she got cancer, because she wasn't living. She didn't know how to live before cancer.
That's right.
And so cancer taught her how to live and how to get her life back. And it gives me the goosies, because isn't that what we're living for? But why do we have to be sick to realize that?
Yeah, it's part of that awakening. You know, unfortunately, that's the way it is. And I can look back, I didn't have cancer, but if it wasn't for that experience with my mother, or those 2 years when I was super sick, that learning how the body functions, how it needs the right things, you know, that when you're sick, you don't have to have a pharmaceutical drug for the answer, but also learning how to, you know, learning that the emotions that I carried with that, how hard and how awful it is on our body's immune system, digestive system, endocrine system, you know, that experience awakened me to a complete understanding. You know, that was kind of the, you know, life isn't, you get up, you work, you know, you retire and you die. There's so much more to it. And if I didn't have that experience, I would still be just kind of going with the flow, being what, you know, is normal.
Yeah.
And it was such a profound experience that I look back and I wouldn't change it for the world, any of it. You know, of course I would love to have my mom here and see my daughters, but you know, it can't happen. The reality of it is that won't happen.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, her love and her things, she passed that on to me, and now I'm able to pass it on to my kids. So in the big picture, that was a big part of it. Seeing someone struggling through the cancer, yet staying positive at all times, you know, and still being loving and still being caring, you know, that's strength right there, big time.
Yeah. And you know what we all have to realize, and this is especially for people who are live with us on the call, is that everybody is going to have these essentially trapped emotions, because we've all had some sort of trauma in our life. I mean, you could have the best of everything and still have these emotions trapped within. You know, whether it's like I said in the email, so you know, could be as worse as a traumatic situation like a rape, or you know, witnessing somebody being murdered. That would probably be the worst, or you know, something excruciatingly traumatic. That PTSD, you know, all the military should really be they should all go to see you because you're in Poway. And I'm going to tell all my military friends, you need to go see Dr. Chris, because he's going to, everything you saw in Iraq, is going to harbor in your cells for the rest of your life. And you don't want to be 55 years old and have cancer, illness, disease coming out because you're harboring so much emotions because of what you saw.
Or the addiction to try to not allow yourself to feel those experiences, the alcohol, the, you know, the pharmaceutical antidepressants, you know, which is a downward spiral, the, you know, whatever it is, you know, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, but you know, it's just, there's such more natural answers and solutions to these problems, for sure.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, for anybody who is even as simple as being yelled at by a teacher. I mean, I remember being humiliated by teachers when I was little, because I was so afraid to read in front of the class. And so when it was my turn to read, and if I stuttered, everything had to be perfect with me. I'm still this way. If I messed up on a word, I was so hard on myself. And if a teacher then, you know, was like, oh, well, Nikki, or like, just making fun of, but in a teacher kind of way, then I was devastated that all stays trapped.
Oh, absolutely.
At that age and carries with you. And, it's really funny how we are embodied in each age. So we might grow, right? We're growing, we look different, we transform physically.
Yeah.
But it's so funny how at each age we are having a human experience at each age. It's hard for me to describe this in words, but it's basically like every situation at age 8, age 9, age 10, is all those experiences are still within you on a cellular level, on a DNA level. So I hope that makes sense. I know that's hard to explain, and probably people are like, I don't even know what Nikki is talking about right now, but it's great to have you on and experience this release. I know that I did this with you probably like a month ago. And so I've been having some respiratory stuff.
Yeah.
And so in some of the interviews, you'll hear, I just cleared my throat here, but I'll either have like throat clearing or throat mucus, or, my lungs are so full of mucus all the time.
Yeah.
And so I would say this, you pinpoint it so well. And I want to say it was desire. I think I said it was despair before, but I'm pretty sure it was desire, because that's exactly it. It's my desire to change the world that has been with me since a very young age. I remember watching Oprah Winfrey at like 5 years old or 6 years old, and me going, I want to be like Oprah.
Yeah.
And so until the age of 18, I wrote down this little, in this little box, I wrote down a note and I said exactly what I want to do. I want to be a talk show host, and I want to be just like Oprah Winfrey. And this is how I'm going to do it. And I put it in my little time capsule box. Who knows where that box is now? But it's a very vivid memory of me writing down of who I was going to be in the future me.
Yeah.
And so, no, I'm not Oprah Winfrey, but this is the closest thing that I could create for myself.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen down the line.
Right.
But, this is definitely that just totally pinpoint the desire in me.
Mm-hmm.
And, to make something of myself, to not disappoint my family, to not disappoint myself. That was all right there in the lungs. So then the lungs cleared.
Yeah.
Guess what happened? As soon as Mega Wellness Summit started, came back. Yeah. So do you want to do a demonstration for the first, we could start with me, and then we'll start taking callers for the next half hour after that.
Yeah. If I could, one of the questions that you kind of had is like how this happens, why this happens, how do our bodies respond to the emotions? And just for, take about 5 minutes to kind of, educate you and the callers and everyone else, how learning this was such the big, profound experience for me of the how do the emotions affect us? So if I may, since you're the wonderful host, I would love to be able to kind of, really educate the physiology of emotions. And that will really help people kind of understand them more. So the biggest thing that was such a major thing is our true core being as a human is actually, they say that, people that love is an emotion. Well, love is actually a state of being. Joy is a state of being, and peace is a state of being. So I really want to focus in on the peace, because when we're able to alleviate our emotions, the negative emotions we're feeling, we're at a state of peace. So the thing is peace isn't something that we as a human try to go out and grab. It's already ourself. It's our true core. It's what I like to call our true self, is peace. So every experience that we have, what happens is we have in our body, it's called the HPA axis. It's the hypothalamus gland, pituitary gland, and our adrenal glands. Those guys connect, and it's like a little bit of an antenna that captures everything that goes on around us. What we see, everything kind of comes in, especially the emotional component. So every experience that we have, like, witnessing an accident, being there for somebody, all that is, it comes in and it hits our HPA axis, this hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenal, endocrine system. Now, what I've learned is you have a choice, or the free will, to choose, how am I going to react to this experience? What happens is a lot of people don't realize we have a choice. But I promise you, through, learning some form of emotional release technique or reading about how your bodies respond to emotions, you'll get that actually, that choice comes to fruition. You go, oh, I have a choice to choose that I'm not going to let this, overwhelm me. I'm not going to let this overwhelm me with fear, anger, resentment, frustration, grief, and worry. So the choice is, there's two ways to accept this experience that you have. You can either, number one, accept it, or you resist it. So those are the two main ways that people will have an experience, and they'll either accept the experience or they'll resist it. Now, I want to throw this out there. I'm not talking about, like, if you're in a physical altercation, you're walking down the street and somebody decides to jump you, and you just sit there going, I'm just going to take it, accept it. No, you're going to want to, you'll get in the fight or flight mechanism, and you're going to want to protect yourself. I'm talking more on the emotional level. The boss walks in the room, the people honk at you, while you're driving down the road. You're experiencing, like what I did with my mother. What you have to understand is, when you have either you accept the situation or you resist it, acceptance on an emotional level is the doorway to peace. It's the only way to that peace that's truly in our body, because you can drive down the road, be late to work, and get a flat tire, and you're already in a state of, I'm so frustrated, I'm late, and then it just snowballs worse. Or, you know what, I'm running late, I'm going to be late, now I have a flat tire, I'm going to accept that I have this flat tire, I'm going to change the tire, I'm going to go to work, and I'm going to just be at a state of peace. Does that kind of make sense? You kind of can choose how you're going to react with that situation. If you accept that situation, it's the immediate doorway to the present moment, or the now, what we've heard, but also that's the state of peace. If we resist that situation, the experience, then that opens up the door to our egos, or that's everything we feel with anger. Oh my gosh, I can't believe now I have a flat tire. This is just going to, this is ruining my day. You're already forecasting, like you're already in that moment of, because you're resisting the experience that we have. Does that kind of make sense? With that,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we're immediately resisting what's happening around us. So again, that experience, we take it in through the HPA axis, and we're resisting it, and that can produce anger. Let's just say out of nowhere in high school, oh, hey, Nikki, can you stand up in front of class and read this out loud to everybody? And out of nowhere, you're going, oh my gosh, because you kind of stated like reading was a thing. That would immediately go, oh my gosh, like it starts to, you start to get anxiety and fear, a paralyzed will, you don't want to do it. That's what happens. But if we could teach our kids this, teach our kids that, hey, we have a choice, and what happens in any experience is you can accept this experience or you can resist it, and the resistance would lead into these problems. You'll have the fear, the paralyzed will, the dread, the grief, the yearning, and all those things. So what happens to that resistance is we will respond to it, and they kind of call it the 3 F's now. It's the fight, flight, or freeze. That's very common with our body. So if we take something in, we resist it, it can cause our endocrine system or the physiology. Now we're going back to the body like a week ago. It can cause us to fight, and fight is really about being angry, having resentment. I can't believe this, it's a flat tire, it's brand new, I'm so upset. And you can correlate that with a lot of things. Or the flight, the flight mechanism is, you're in a relationship that's really, when it gets confrontational, immediately you want to stop it. You want to leave. You don't want to face it. You don't accept that something's going on when your body's trying to teach you, hey, if you can rationally sit down and talk about this with somebody, you guys can grow your souls and become better people in a relationship. But some people, they don't want to, nope, I don't want to talk about it, don't want to have anything to do with about it. They just bury it. And then sometimes it's so hard, like, standing in front of an audience and they say, hey, Nikki, let's have you read this in front of an audience. You're going to go into a freeze mode. So those are the responses that occur when we don't accept what is actually happening around us. So then on a physical level, this is where we start going, how important it is to learn how to be able to respond to situations in a positive or an accepting way. Is if we don't, it can immediately start producing a lot of what we call stress hormones. The big one is being cortisol. And, they find that chronic, long-term effects of cortisol are degeneration, illness, disease, decreased immune system, poor health, poor heart conditions, and we look at the American society and go, oh my gosh, so we can't ignore our emotions, our, these negative emotions when it comes to any part of any type of dis-ease or disease or illness. It needs to be, it needs to be recognized. Everybody on this planet, everybody in the United States needs to realize how important our emotions are when it comes to our health. So if you're chronically are in that situation and your body just is like, I'm so stressed out about work, I'm work, or whatever it is, your body's going to produce these negative hormones, and it's going to cause this body to not be able to fight. Because only when we are in a true state of peace, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, that's when miracles can happen. That's when our bodies will start to heal themselves. So anytime someone has a disease, in America, it's, oh, you have cancer. Let's shoot it with radiation, load it with chemotherapy. What about the emotional aspect of it? Learning how to pray, learning how to meditate, learning to find peace in the situation, no matter how hard it is, will calm your body down. And when you're in a calm state, that's when your immune system functions better. That's when your digestive system functions better. Your circulation is better. The blood pressure lowers. That's when endorphins, or healthy nutrients, can actually start to help heal your body. So kind of getting into that, what is the American way? Stress, a situation in our life, whether it's, losing a loved one, work, we don't like our body image, our low self-esteem, we're overweight. There's so many things, there's always an emotion with everything that's happening. What we feel can cover it up is simply, having those cigarettes, having that cigarette to take it away, having that glass of wine every day when you get home, or having that fifth of vodka every day, or it can get into sexual type things, pornography, going into anything which, the pornography is hard to talk about, but it can destroy your life, it can destroy your relationships. Even going into be having exercise as an addiction. It's good to exercise, but do it for the love of your body, not to get over a stressful situation. Does that make sense? It's so easy, man. I had a bad day, I got to get out there and walk. Well, there's different intensity levels to that. You'd rather go exercise than go hit the bottle of vodka. Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
really start to, when you constantly are exercising to try to eliminate stress, it actually can it's like a dog chasing its tail. You're exercising in a stressful state, which actually can produce more stressful hormones. So it's learning to go, okay, I want to be at peace. I'm going to go for a walk, and I'm going to take all, the beauty of, nature in. And now I feel at peace. Now you should start exercising. Find a place of peace before you exercise, things like that. So there's a payoff that's involved with having that drink, having that cigarette, doing something that we know it's not healthy. That payoff is, what it does is I'm feeling that negative emotion, it suppresses it immediately. But it didn't take care of it. Like I always say, it puts it's taking the dirty garbage and putting it under the rug, throwing the garbage in the garage, over and over and over and over. It's still in you. So, that's the way I was. That's what I was living my life, and I didn't understand. I didn't know how that I could actually, learn to not rely on outside factors, rely on the exercising, the cigarettes, the alcohol, all those things, learning that we can internalize what's happening and we can release this without anything. And that's when you're diving into knowing who you truly are as a person. And that is, I promise everyone out there, no matter how hard you're experiencing it, your core being is peace. Your core being is joy. Your core being is love. There's a difference of being in a state of love as to, oh, I love to go to the ocean. Yeah, the ocean is peaceful. I love to go to the ocean, or I love to have, this dessert. It's my favorite dessert. That type of love is different than your true core state of being. So that's where I want everyone to know is that peace that you already have in you, that love that you already have in you, that joy you have already in you, that's what's going to take care of those negative emotions that you're experiencing. That, not the outside factors. You already have the healing mechanisms in you. That's part of what we call our innate intelligence, is that state of peace. And we feel that in our hearts. And it's the mind that will try to take that away from you. It's our ego. Ego is synonymous with mind. We think we need this, and we did this, I feel so much better, when we actually suppressed it. So, it's, once you know that and you truly take that in, the greatest couple things that I always tell people is, it's not what happens to you, it's how you respond. And then they also, the one is, the sun is always shining. Same as the peace and love and joy in our hearts. It's just the clouds that will cover it up. And our internal clouds are those negative emotions. That is the grief that we're experiencing, the anger that we have, the resentment of what I used to be like or who I was. I regret that I did those things, or having the fear of the future, the anxiety of where am I going to do? What am I going to do with my life? I'm working so hard to pay the bills. I can't, we have a mortgage and I lost my job. Those are overwhelming. But the thing is those overwhelming emotions, they don't really help us in, find a new job or whatever. It's just the fear of not getting a job they think is what causes us to, the fear of this is what's, catapulting us to find something, when really you can let go of those fears and be at a state of peace and, look for that new job. So, our bodies, I say we're always running away from the bear. The work is the bear, bills are a bear, our relationships can be a bear, like we're in the woods, it's peaceful, and all of a sudden we see a bear, it turns on that fight or flight mechanism, those cortisol mechanisms. So if we can truly know that we have that state of peace in us, then that's where you can truly start to begin to heal. So I kind of rambled on there a little bit.
That was excellent. That was truly amazing. And what was needed for this call was it was perfect, impeccable. I know that I was going through the archives in my life as you were speaking about different things that have occurred in my life that have bring me back to what you were saying, and that, I do want to strive for that state of love and joy. And that's what our core beingness is. But at the same time, like you said, the human experience today,
yes,
we have a lot of factors against us, and so, even attending a summit like this, if you've gone through every single person I've interviewed and you've listened to what they have said. So we've talked to, Dr. Sherry Tenpenny about vaccines. That's that could cause fear. You talk about cancer. You talk about glyphosate with Dr. Stephanie Seneff.
Yep.
Those things are like, oh my gosh. And they're not to put more fear into your brain, but to try to awaken you to what's going on. But at the same time, we need classes like this to show us that we need to come down to reality and be human again, to find the love within us, and that there are outside factors that we cannot control. We can't control the bear coming after us. But I'm sure if we're going to be talking about the Bible, maybe it even does say this, is that, maybe if we could pretend that we are a butterfly and fly away.
Yeah.
Instead of being there frozen, watching the bear, come at us and eat us, we could then transform ourselves and fly away into something else. And that's sort of what we're doing in a meditative state, is that we're taking our minds somewhere else to calm our body down. And that was so beautifully said. So thank you so much for taking the time and really explaining that. So if anybody, we will continue to keep talking, but I hope that somebody would come on and get this demonstrated on them and get some help right now. I mean, this is a great time to talk to Dr. Hengesteg and to get some questions answered. So does anybody have any questions? This is what you're going to do. You're going to go click where it says manage participants on your screen, click it. There'll be something that says raise hand or hand raise or something like that. And click that button and that will raise your hand, and I will go ahead and call on you, and then I'll unmute you so you can go ahead and ask your question. So again, it's manage participants. Go ahead click on the raise hand button, raise your hand, and I will go ahead and call on you. If you don't want to do that, there's a fancy dancy chat box where you can click, it says chat, and then you can message me or the entire group your question, and then I can read it. The only thing is that if you want to have basically a reading done by Dr. Chris, I think that it would be great for you to come on and so he can tap into your energy field, right?
Yeah, just what they're experiencing. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any hands being raised at the moment, and that's okay. I mean, let's just say that somebody does come on, and it could be definitely kind of a hard spot to be in front of a whole.
Emotions are a hard thing to deal with and talk about. You want to feel comfortable when you're doing that. So, just kind of summarizing, like what I like to do with anybody listening and they have something. So I'm going to kind of go through the little steps, Nikki, and you can kind of, see if we can do this is, can you now like recognize you got it. The biggest step to trying to learn how to change the experience from a reactive state or resistant stage and learning how to accept it is you first got to be able to, for yourself, you need to recognize that you're having this experience. I like to use the honk and the horn. Like if someone honks the horn at you and you honk right back and you didn't even think about it, you're not recognizing that state. You're not recognizing that you have that impulsive anger emotion. You're conditioned so quickly. But when you can recognize, like you talked about, Nikki, like, when I was younger, you can recognize. So why don't we just kind of go in with that one? Does that sound good? Like when your teachers were, wanting you to, read out loud. So what I want you to do, Nikki, is, you've already recognized it, but number one thing is I ask is, can you recognize that experience?
Mm-hmm.
You know it. Now, the big thing is now go into, can you feel those same emotions that you experienced as a child? Emotions are timeless. The emotions they're ever present, omniscient, they're always with us. So if you can, that's what's amazing about these healing techniques is you don't have to go into the past, like, oh, I wish I could go back and change no, you can feel it right now. It's embedded into your brain memory system because it was a traumatic experience. So what I want you to do, Nikki, is, you've recognized it, and now I've asked, can you feel those emotions with that? And can you feel that? Can you almost like feel like, you feel the negative emotions almost kind of starting to come over you, the hormones, everything that you feel. Now, what I want you to do is, can you choose to accept that experience with this, or do you want to choose to resist it?
Accept it.
Yes. So even just by saying, I'm accepting it, it'll change how your body's response to it is. You'll already start to open up that doorway into that peace that you already have. If you are like, I want to resist it, well, your body's not going to do anything. So now that you've accepted that experience, accepted that, what had happened to you was traumatic and you can feel those emotions already, I want you to do something now. Can you allow yourself to feel those emotions? Right.
Yeah, it's I think so. As a child, I can feel the humiliation,
Yep.
the humiliation of it.
what you want to do is that humiliation is still like almost, you could say, embedded into your cells. It's embedded into your brain. What you want to do is you want to allow yourself to feel that humiliation. And this is the hardest part. But, you know, the greatest thing that I saw was, you know, by Dr. David Hawkins. He's the Power versus Force, Eye of the I. Now his last book, Letting Go, he says, we already kind of karmically are inherited these emotions that are in us. So that humiliation that you feel, as hard as it sometimes is to believe, it was in you already, and you have this much of it. When you allow yourself to feel that emotion, it's almost like if it was in like an air balloon. You're opening up that balloon, or you're opening up that air tank, and you're letting it go. You're actually allowing the peace in your body to dissolve it, because in your heart is where you'll dissolve all your negative emotions. The peace will actually dissolve it. So when you accept it, you accept that that experience happened. I'm going to allow myself to feel it. What you want to get into is you want to allow yourself to feel that negative emotion. Because if you don't, you're resisting it. So what you do is you just, you know, close your eyes, find some peaceful place, and really just allow yourself to feel it. And what can happen is the intensity of it can be really strong. When you allow yourself to feel it, the intensity can get stronger and stronger and stronger, but stay strong with it. Keep allowing yourself to feel it. Keep allowing yourself to feel it. And what you'll do is all of a sudden you'll feel it almost like you're going up the roller coaster, and then all of a sudden you'll start to feel like the energy starts to dissipate, and it starts to get better, and it starts to, you know, dissipate or go away. You know, and this is kind of the true letting go. Letting go, you have to allow yourself to experience this. It's part of your journey. It's part of your, you know, your soul's growth. And you know, and so you just keep allowing yourself to feel it. Allow the mind to not step in, because what everybody will feel is when they're trying to allow it, the allowance immediately goes into your heart of peace, but your mind is going to want to come in and chatterbox it. You know, keep feeling, I don't know, you know, don't do this, you know, it'll make it a wander. So the more you become present and at peace with allowing yourself to feel it, you'll find the intensity of it will start to get less and less. And when you start feeling that experience, the emotions lessen and lessen, you're on the right track. You're always, if you allow yourself to feel it, it can get intense, but then it'll start to go, and you're letting it go. You're actually alleviating it from your karmic inheritance. You're letting go of it. For boom, you've just now grown as a person spiritually, because you've let go of that. You've allowed yourself to feel it and not suppressed it by being a workaholic or having a drink or having that cigarette. So you know, allowing the peace, your true self, to experience it without deviation of the mind. It's once you do this over and over, it becomes second nature, and it's actually very simple. And you don't need, you know, it's helpful to have other teachers and people to help you with this. But if you're able to do this every night at bedtime, you know, okay, the day was stressful, I'm going to allow myself to feel that stress. You're going to sleep better, you're going to wake up more energized, and things like that. And what people will feel is when they're done, they just kind of have this peace.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what was your experience with that? This is kind of the first time the last time we did some other things, but this one, what did you feel like when you actually felt that emotion as the kid, what the teacher made you do, and you could tap into it? What did you feel? Did you feel it kind of like come like, oh, wow, I really have a lot of this left in me? Or what was your experience?
Because I've worked through so much already, I feel like the pain of that has really left.
Yep.
But humiliation does stick around with me in certain areas of my life. So that situation, as a child, no longer serves me or affects me, but there are other situations that have caused humiliation.
Yep.
So I had to tap into that to get the emotion, up and out of that, because there are places and so many times in my life that I've had humiliation.
Yes.
And so I tapped into that and asked, and released it and let go. And so that's the space that I was in.
Yeah. You brought up a huge point, is each emotion, like the humiliation, you can go into that experience as a kid. But if you kind of alleviate that, is there humiliation still left in you? Look at the experiences that you have in life. The universe will have things happen to you to bring out those negative emotions. Does that make sense? So humiliation can have an infinite potential of when you were a little kid and the teacher did this. I had to go to church and I had to read this. I had to, I was at the airport and I had to get the TSA agents and they literally made me take off my shirt and my pants. That's, to check me for weapons. That's humiliation.
Yeah.
So it's knowing that if you have those other experiences, that the humiliation is still going to be present in you. So the universe is kind of telling you, hey, Nikki, you still have some of this humiliation in you with these experiences that we've, like Gary Zukav says, this is Earth's school. Learn.
That's right.
It's really learning to let go and, recognize that these are experiences, recognize that you have the choice to allow yourself to feel it or resist it. And that's where we get into the other things. But really holding on to that, allowing, and really that's how we let it go into that peace.
So can we try it the other way, to where somebody comes to you and they say, well, Doc, I actually I woke up with some pain on my shoulder here, where it's like muscle soreness. And so, can you tap into that and then identify the emotion that is triggered?
Yeah, absolutely. So then, there's ways that we can tap into specifically, like, hey, what emotion is a possible trigger for that pain in your shoulder?
Let's do it right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's do it.
All right. So you got some pains in the shoulder.
Yeah, my left shoulder.
Okay. Is it
well,
different?
It's right here.
Okay. Here. Right on the trap muscle. Okay. So are you right now, obviously you're able to feel that pain.
Yeah.
So we can kind of tap into that, and, and that gets into some details of, we can do my own little muscle testing and, figure out exactly, you don't have to be present in my office with that. But what I'm going to be doing is I'm just kind of tapping in, almost like you are here. It's quantum physics, everybody. It's just Newtonian law is old. We have quantum physics now. We can connect. We can connect through, computers and phones. We can kind of tap in also with when we're with each other through that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of tap in and, go with that pain on your left shoulder, and I'm just kind of feeling and kind of resonating with your own points of the body, the organ points that can hold the emotions. And we're getting down into, with the liver, and the liver can have, there's anger, there's resentments with the liver point. That's a big one. Frustration. And so what we're kind of tapping into with the shoulders, it's kind of like something, that area can be like, and what I'm getting is it's definitely, there's some, it's kind of a couple things is anger and frustration. And actually you're sensitive to other people's anger or frustration at you. It's not your anger. It's when somebody is angry or frustrated with you or something you did or something that's going on, it can trigger that. And it's one of those things where when someone's angry at you, you kind of, you kind of get this. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a normal human response to kind of, it's like the porcupine doing their thing or whatever. So it gets into that shoulders, and you're just like, oh, that when that person's angry with me or that person's frustrated at me, it can trigger that physiological response of, the pain in the shoulder there. Does that sound right?
Probably, just being with, I think more just being through this whole summit. It's not that, I had any real projected anger on me, but I would say there's a lot of nerves, probably frustration or potential anger that I'm seeing, that isn't actually in the right now, but it's like projected anger in the future. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for instance, I'll just try to say this in somebody else's life, but let's just say that, if I do this, then my husband's going to be angry with me. If I do this, then my wife is going to be angry with me. Right. Or girlfriend, boyfriend, daughter, son. So, that's where I'm at. If I do this, then this is the consequence. So it's like consequences are just constant. They're just like in my shoulder.
Yeah.
And so that could be frustration, anger, but I don't know. You didn't say it was my own anger. It's somebody else's. Well,
yeah, you're sensitive, or it's other people's, and you're projecting, you're like going, yeah, this could make my husband angry, or this could make other people angry. And
that's right.
That anger is kind of almost directed back at you.
Right.
You feel that.
Right.
And that can trigger, again, that HP axis boom. And for whatever, I can't tell people exact. Sometimes it's pretty obvious, but like you're carrying, like, oh man, they could be angry at me. I'm carrying this burden. I don't want to be carrying this or whatever. You can't sometimes go, oh, well, you have this exactly because it's that emotion. Your body responds somehow, some way to that anger, and it's triggering a pain in that trap area muscle. Some people, it's their low back. Some people, it's an obvious heart palpitations, the blood pressure rises, everybody has kind of a different experience with each emotion. It's not just, anytime you have anger, it's 100% guaranteed you're going to feel it in your trap muscles in your shoulder or neck. That's so not true. It's your experience, your physiology, it's the way your body handles that. Right.
Yeah. And, it's funny because tomorrow I actually have a surprise guest for everybody that I haven't announced. I will announce it later today. But I read this book. It's called The Path to Wealth. And I know that financial situations can really harbor anger, all the emotions out there.
Absolutely.
That's what money does for people.
Money. They say that's the primary reason of divorce and, health issues and things like that. It's money.
Lack of money, too much money. It's, It's just ridiculous. And so the book, I'll show it to you. It's called The Path to Wealth. I'm interviewing her tomorrow.
Cool.
The Path to Wealth. And her name is May McCarthy. And the reason why I bring this up is because she tells you how to spiritually tap into getting what you want and releasing the fears associated with not having enough. And that there's so many deep-rooted beliefs that we have.
Right.
And so, everything is related. So for me, like this could be like a trapped emotion related to money, not having enough money next month, how we'll be able to live, all those things. I can't buy groceries. And then what is my husband going to think? That's the number one thing. What is my husband going to think?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one you'd want to work on.
Right.
That will really, that will just, it will just for peace of mind, a peace of heart, and, really, and that's normal, relationship and marriage is, the opportunity, marriage is stressful, marriage is hard and things like that. Well, it is, because it's hard when your significant other is actually, you might not know it, but they're bringing out something in you that you need to let go. And you do the same back. And,
right.
it's why, it's like they're kind of a perfect soulmate is, what is he going to say? Well, you can try to let go of that energy of, oh, what's he going to, that feeling. And, what makes a marriage stronger is when you're both participating in that spiritual growth.
Right.
If one isn't, that's tough. That's where it's tough to, to grow, because you got to just always take care of yourself.
Yeah. Well, I always say too, that when you change yourself, you change the world.
Yeah.
And so I know I'm completely a big believer in this, is that when I did work on myself, it projected onto my husband, and he started to get better at things that I couldn't stand.
Yeah.
Those things no longer bothered me anymore.
Right.
But we're always a work in progress.
Right.
And so people can they can call you, right, Dr. Chris? And right. They can say, well, I've been diagnosed with this, and I'd like to know how to release the emotions if they're not able to do it on their own with your demonstration.
Right.
And so I do encourage everybody to call or contact Dr. Chris and just have a chat with him and just let him know what's going on if you're not able to get to Poway, San Diego, California. I'm actually lucky I'm right here,
right.
Down the street from you, which is very nice and convenient. And so if you're not able to, go ahead and I'm sure that you'll Skype or, do phone or whatever is best for them, so that you can work with them one-on-one.
Yep.
You are amazing.
Thank you.
You are amazing. I'm just going to ask the audience, does anyone have any questions? I just asked everybody. So we'll just give them one more minute to come on. If not, then you have an awesome rest of your day. I think this was super helpful. I'm hoping that this recording will be up by 5 o'clock, but for whatever reason, the live shows have been taking like 15 to 25 hours to download to YouTube.
Oh, that's
upload. It's just,
it happens.
I know. It's something that's out of my control. Okay. So somebody said, can you talk about digestion issues?
Yeah. So when with digestive issues, you want to look at, there's a couple things. Is an emotion can trigger digestive issues for sure. If you feel very stuck in a relationship, stuck in your job, stuck in your career, stuck in a situation, with digestive issues, the common ones can be correlated with that, that feeling of stuck can lead to constipation. That's just a very common one when it comes to emotional, physiological conditions. Also with a lot with maybe your stomach or small intestine. You could be in a lot of high states of wants. That's your solar plexus area. You want this, you want that, you're not getting this, those type of things.
Where's the solar plexus?
Yeah, the solar plexus is actually, it's like right where your stomach is. It's like, if you follow your breastbone down, I'll show, it's just like right here, this area. That's the solar plexus, and that's like right in the stomach area. But again, it's nice because the intestine, the stomach can deal a lot with, there are a lot of emotions that can be with the stomach, or obsessions, helplessness, the small intestine. You're looking at, feeling lost or vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
You're very lost in life, or you're feeling very vulnerable in a situation. The large intestine area, the stuck. Sometimes it can be, feelings. It can go with grief, but grief has a lot to do with the lungs, or even just having this defensive-like mechanism, very defensive or mean. Those can be associated with digestive type of issues. And it's easier, to get specific with, if that person's on, we do Google Hangout or something.
Right.
The person, and just kind of really resonating with them and getting kind of more specific on what else is going on.
Let me just tell everybody my digestive story with Dr. Chris. So 3 weeks ago, if you haven't already heard this story, this is new to you. If it's not, sorry. But 3 weeks ago, on a Friday night, I had terrible stomach pains. I was doubled over in pain. I couldn't walk. It was just horrible. And so I had never experienced pain like that. And I called my mother. She came over. I got everybody over. I texted Dr. Chris, and I said, look, I'm such bad pain, stomach pain. I don't want to go to the hospital, but it's so severe. What do I do? And so he stayed in contact with me, and he helped me work through that. And so I didn't end up having to go to the hospital, thank God. And so I went to go see him on Monday, and I got on some amazing supplements that have really helped me immensely. So he did kinesiology on me in his office, and I was immediately put on some great supplements, especially for my adrenals. And, I've been good ever since. Not to say I have to go back and make sure how everything is progressing, but that's my recent digestive issue story. And it's so funny that you just brought up, solar plexus. That's exactly where the pain was.
Right.
The pain was very, very, it felt like I had a hole in my stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's
there's a lot going on.
Yeah. I know. I always do.
Yeah.
I always do. But I'm just going to wrap up right now and just say thank you so much for coming on and sharing your wisdom with everybody. I encourage everybody to go ahead and call Dr. Chris. And I know that we all have things that we need to talk about. And Dr. Chris is amazing. He's so caring and thoughtful and loving. And that's what I love about you.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what I love. I'm so grateful.
You're lovely too. You're great. Thank you.
And
Bye.